Mimi Leader is an Emmy-winning director and producer who is nominated again this year for Best Directing for a Drama Series for The Morning Show, specifically the season finale episode, The Interview. So first off, congratulations on that. And you directed other episodes in season one as well. So what made that particular episode stand out to you as an example of your work that you were especially proud of?
Yeah, well, I directed the pilot and the second episode, but I felt the show really grew and found its voice as the writers were finding, as Carrie was finding her voice in the show, and as the characters were reaching this crescendo. It felt like it was an episode that truly represented what the show was about.
And working on a pilot episode and really setting the tone there versus working on the finale, where what you're doing is you're paying off a lot of storylines. What are the kind of different challenges that go into those two?
Well, creating a pilot and setting the tone, the color palette, the visual, palette, and the tone of the characters is just world building and building the sets and making it as authentic as possible. We went down to GMA and the Today Show and really brought in all the details that we felt were essential to, a morning show. And, and it's you're setting up these characters and you don't know where they're going. And we're stepping into their shoes. The actors are stepping into their shoes for the first time. And you're, guiding this ship and seeing where it's going to take you or where you're going to take it. And it's very challenging. And then to do the finale is the big payoff of what you birthed. And so the baby has grown and here it is. And here are all the colors and here are all the, here it is through our lens, through a female lens.
And having worked in TV over the years, but not in morning television, it's its own such a different beast. You mentioned going to see the Good Morning America set and how that was. Like, how much research and learning was there, the learning process of, what goes into a morning show and what goes in behind the scenes?
Well, it's a live, it's like live theater. Everything is like people get up at 3:30 in the morning. Their lives are completely there, off in terms of like when they go to sleep and what they're going to talk about. And it's chaos. But at 7 a.m., everybody's just, it rolls and it feels completely relaxed. And, what we wanted to really explore was, what went on behind the lens, behind the scenes, a la broadcast news, a la network. And, what we wanted to present visually, how these morning shows look. They're very bright, they're very warm, they're very inviting. And wanted to create the feeling of great complexity behind the scenes because these characters were very, very flawed. And, the show immediately examines a predatory culture, and allegations of sexual misconduct and the Me Too movement and how our characters fit into all that and their culpability, their lives interwoven. It was a very complex story. Carrie Ann, great writer and great collaborator.
And, this very much is a sort of high-pressure, fast-paced work environment with this large ensemble cast. And in that way, it's almost like, it reminds me a little bit of like ER, which you did a lot of work on and won your Emmys for. Was it a similar kind of, obviously the stakes are not the same. There's, saving lives and there's putting on a show, but for the characters involved, it's just as kind of life and death.
Well, the stakes are really high for our characters. Alex has been a star for 15 years, and now her on-screen husband, everything is just blown up. with sexual allegations of misconduct, and so we explore power, in this patriotic, toxic world, and how our characters react to it, and who they are, and it takes all the way to a very disturbing and powerful ending to for Alex's character in particular, to go on this journey, find her voice, have a breakdown on screen and a breakthrough. And and also with Reese Witherspoon's character, her character's been around, but she's never been an anchor. And our show takes place in 23 days, and she's thrown into this world. And so, it was, we explored those nuances of it all. And it was really hard, and it was really fun.
Two of your leads are so well known for comedy, but of course we've seen them do drama well before. Steve Carell, Jennifer Aniston, and of course these roles have that intense drama to it, but also there's humor, there's wit. Like, what was it like working with them on developing these Emmy-nominated as well performances?
Well, we really strove for authenticity and a grounded reality in this high, almost operatic world. And the finale, felt like an opera to me. We put opera in it. We had our incredible editors, Carol Kravitz and Aleshka Ferrero, added this opera into these very operatic scenes because the stakes were so high. And, working with Jen Aniston, Reese Witherspoon, Mark Duplass, Billy Crudup, Steve Carell, you name it, Bel Pally, all of them. I know I'm leaving people out. Gugu Mbatha-raw, brilliant, just brilliant. And these actors just would come to the set and just bring it. And, navigating actors who, drama, but there's no great drama without comedy. And these actors knew when to hit those notes, and they just made me look really good, actually.
And a lot of the emotional climax in that finale episode is Gugu Mbatha-raw's character's Hannah, her own experience with the sexual misconduct of Steve Carell's character kind of comes to a head, and there's this breakdown scene where she's recounting her story to Reese Witherspoon's character Bradley. What was that like to shoot, and just dealing with kind of the climax of this intense subject matter through her point of view, and with that really intense and fantastic performance?
Yeah. Well, Gugu is an incredibly brilliant performer, as is Reese Witherspoon. And, with that type of scene, we were working towards that scene for the entire season. And what was really important about that scene was not to rehearse it, not to overdo it. And I cleared the set and only had the cameras in the room and nobody else. And we only ran the words just to find when we were gonna rise and where the camera was gonna move. And then we just went for it. And I wanted to shoot it also in a very classical, subtle way. The words were powerful, and the experience she had with Mitch was very powerful to express. And so there were I think Gugu did about 3 takes, and we had it. It was just there. And, Reese, is in this interview, doing the interview, and listening is also one of the great skills, that any great actor will have. And she listened beautifully. And that was hard to listen to. And I think the audience felt that as well. And so you just have to be really sensitive when you're doing scenes like that, where people are bearing their souls. And we were.
And Hannah's final shot on the show, and spoiler
Yeah.
alert to anyone who hasn't seen it,
Yeah.
but like if you're watching this interview right now, you should have seen it. So just giving you a fair warning.
Yeah.
That Gugu's character, she's found the next morning. She's committed suicide. And the last shot we see of her though is like sort of walking down the street
Right.
away from the camera, like as the fog kind of envelops her. Like, what was your thinking, like, of capturing that feeling and that visual for that finale for that character?
Thank you. That shot, that wasn't in the script. And I was on the street and, we were placing all the steam that comes out of the streets. And, I brought her across the street and, she made that phone call and accepted that job. And, she thought it would make her feel good, but it didn't. And so there's a moment on her face where she has that realization and she goes numb. And so I was looking at the street and I wanted her to walk away, sort of this pure, beautiful soul. And I know this sounds kind of, it sounds a little pretentious, but I wanted us to feel like she was walking away to heaven, like going away. And I wanted the fog, the steam to envelop the frame and for the frame to turn white. And we took over the frame as the smoke filled the frame. I added a little more smoke and CG and faded to white. That took us to Steve Carell. And, it was just one of those moments where I saw it and I had to make that shot. And it was important for the actor to have that exit. And there is a later, shot when we see her, dead. But I wanted to see her walk away when she was alive. And anyway, I'm glad you pointed it out because when we did it, it felt so right.
And there's another really memorable shot, and there must have been a lot of thought going into it because it's the closing shot of the entire season where you have Steve Carell in his home alone. The camera just pulls away from him, and the whole room around him is just empty. It's such an evocative shot of exactly where he is at that point in his kind of life and career. Like, how long did you have that shot in mind, or what went into deciding to kind of capture it with that visual?
The scene as written had him pulling up in his driveway, walking into the house, and then sitting down. And so for a while there, we had shot in that house several times, but especially in the pilot, we shot in there in Jen's big scene, Alex's big scene with him when she confronts him. Why, why did you have to do this? Why did you have to, ruin everything? And so I wanted, I kept thinking about that island, the kitchen island, and it had such a cool reflection. It was black. And I said, well, I don't want to sit him on the stairs. I want to put him on an island, the literal island, and an island of his own making. And so I sat him there and I looked at it and I said, this is, where I want to put you, and I talked to the cinematographer and I said, I want to see the reflection of him, his reflection in the island. And then I decided to start close on him and pull away and reveal his aloneness. And, the moment is also about, does Mitch finally get what he did? Does he get it? And, I also tried, different versions of that scene, of like crying, breaking down, screaming. And we landed on this silence because there was really nothing more to say. And so that's where we landed. And it was one of those moments where you go, yeah, we got it. This was it,
And the show was renewed for a second season. You'd started working on the second season, and then the COVID-19 pandemic hit. And like,
Oh, yeah.
what was that like to kind of go from hitting the ground running again to full stop? And do you know if and when or under what circumstances you'll be able to go back into production, or
Yeah.
what's going on around that?
Well, when we were filming, we filmed for 13 days and then we shut down. Everything was just unfolding. And I remember pulling the crew together, when we didn't know much, but it was like, okay, guys, let's use hand sanitizers and let's not hug. No more hugging, and people had a hard time adjusting to that because no one knew what was going on. But every day we kept hearing more and more. And honestly, it was a very difficult time shooting because it was there. It was there. And it didn't feel good to be there. It didn't feel right. There was too much unknown. And so we shut it down. And, no one knew how long we were going to be shut down for. And nobody still knows. I mean, we plan to go back in the fall and under very strict protocols, COVID protocols. It's a whole new normal out there. And the trick is, if you're going to work in this new normal, you have to not lose the integrity of the work you're doing while being safe, because you got to be so safe, and you have to not do this and not do that and do this and do that. But you also got to get the work, and hopefully this new normal doesn't distract from the work. It's a very complicated time. It really is, for filmmakers, for shows, for storytelling, and for how to tell this story of, a pandemic. And how do you tell that? How does, we're a morning show, that deals with, the ills of the world, racism, injustice, and all that morning show, light stuff. And then, you incorporate COVID, just like the morning shows did. So, yeah, we're writing, we're incorporating. It's going to be a great season. Just like the first season. When this was conceived, there was no Me Too movement. And during the writing, the Me Too movement happened. And we went, obviously, toward it. And so it's very strange how the universe works.
Yeah, and well, I want to thank you again for joining me, and congratulations to you on your nomination and the 7 other nominations for the show, including several of the actors and production design and main title design. And best of luck at the virtual Emmys, which is another thing that we're going to have that's going to be brand new next month.
What's that going to be like?
So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.